All right, we're live today. We're going to talk about golden rice, GMOs, and misplaced environmental activism. It's hard. One of the things is in this world is everybody is like this. We fear things we do not understand. And I feel like so many people don't fundamentally understand much about science, especially when it comes to science about genetics. There's like, oh my gosh, we're manipulating genes. How there could be something inherently bad about this, or it's unnatural, or what if those weird mutant genetically engineered genes got out in nature and wreaked havoc on our natural ecosystems and organic crops? Well, that's misplaced fear. And like I said, we fear things we don't understand, and especially when the vast majority of people do not understand how GMOs work. A few years ago, actually back in the 1990s, a couple of scientists developed golden rice. And what they did is they created a strain of rice that produced vitamin A. Now, unfortunately, um, their first strains of vitamin A rice or golden rice didn't produce enough vitamin A to really make a difference. So what they did is they gave their information away, their patents away, to a company called Syngenta, who in 2005 greatly increased the amount of vitamin A in rice. In fact, the rice turned golden colored, and this could reduce vitamin A deficiency worldwide. This is fantastic. Rice is relatively easy to grow. Yeah, it takes some water, but you know what? It's easy to grow. Rice doesn't exactly have a lot of nutrition in it. It's full of a bunch of carbohydrates. But hey, if you can put vitamin A in it, here's a crop that has a really long shelf life. It's really easy to transport, and it can prevent blindness and death in children worldwide. Unfortunately, it was met with skepticism. People, the very countries that could use this the most kind of banned it. And then you had environmental organizations like Greenpeace saying, hey, we should have spent that money just growing better crops. Well, the point is we need good crops, and we need crops with more nutrition. And engineering crops to produce vitamin A is really important. And, if you make vitamin A in a lab, or if you eat it in a carrot, or you eat it in a GMO rice, it's the same vitamin A. It's going to have the exact same effect on your body. Another criticism they were worried about is that the genes might somehow contaminate natural plants or get into organic crops. And my response to that is, what's your point? So what if it did? Wouldn't matter. All you would do is create organic corn that actually produced vitamin A in the endosperm, you would create organic rice that makes vitamin A in the endosperm, and the endosperm is actually what the rice grain is. And rice naturally makes vitamin A in their leaves. They just don't make it in the rice grain. Well, what's the problem with making it in the rice grain? Why is that so unnatural? So I have a real hard time with things like Greenpeace going out there and opposing technologies that can actually prevent these types of vitamin deficiencies. And like I said, their statement against GMO rice is based solely on ignorance and fear. And when you read their thing, they're like, it's wasteful. It goes against nature. They're saying that it could contaminate these crops, and I'm like, it just doesn't matter if it contaminates the crops or not. And they also are demonizing corporations. Now, granted, corporations do have some problems, but when the creators of golden rice, their names are oh my gosh, I forgot their names. They were on the cover of Time magazine, and what they did is they actually gave their patent away to Syngenta and says, you can't make money off of this. You're not going to incorporate this and try to make a lot of money. This has to be done for humanitarian purposes. So it's pretty amazing that, hey, there are biotech companies out there that do make things like golden rice and will put it out there for free. So, one of the things, if you fear GMOs, I strongly urge you to understand a little bit about the genetics and about, chemicals and chemistry. We seem to fear things we don't understand. I started this biocast off with that. And, like I said, the reason why GMOs work is basically because the genetic code is universal. We use the same adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine That is found in every living organism on the planet. Those nucleotides come together to form 3 codons, which code for an amino acid, and all life on this planet uses the same amino acids. And the codons are universal. That means that the language of life is the same everywhere in the world with every different organism. So if I've got a gene that makes beta carotene in a carrot or the leaf of a rice plant, and and I put that into the grain of the rice plant, it's going to make the same beta carotene or the same vitamin A. So we have to get over this initial fear of the rice. And I got a question coming in. How difficult would it be for GMO manufacturers to make single generation crops? As I understand it, farmers must sign contracts saying they won't reseed the crops from the GMO seeds that they buy. This has come up a lot, and I'm going to admit straight up, I'm not a farmer, but I do know that farmers have been buying crops from large corporations for a very long time. In fact, the idea of collecting your seeds and then reseeding your fields has gone away a long time ago. But we do have single crops that they do use. I don't know about them making the GMO a single generation. I mean, once you introduce it into the strain, the whole idea is you can continually grow it over and over and over again. Okay, well, if anybody else has any questions, that's great. I'll be happy to answer them. But like I said, with these GMO crops, every one of them has to also undergo really strict FDA testing, more so than crops that would be hybridized or bred through artificial selection. And these crops do get tested. And one other thing I want to say about GMOs, when we start manipulating genes, we can do this these days fairly precisely. And if we do mess up, and you get an off-target mutation, we can catch that and then get rid of that strain. And the other thing is by doing GMOs, we can be very accurate about it. And GMOs have actually saved some crops too, like the papaya in Hawaii. They can save it. And we can precisely engineer these crops and make them do exactly what we want them to do. And we got to not fear that, because like I said, with the universality of the genetic code, if you're making a protein in a fish and you put it in tomato, it's going to make the same protein. If it's safe to eat in a fish, it's safe to eat in a tomato. If you're eating a carrot and that beta carotene is safe for you, and you put the same genes in the rice to make it in the rice grain, it's safe to eat. And like I said, this undergoes rigorous testing to make sure that it is safe. Okay, so I'm not going to drag on anymore here. I just want to reiterate that these environmental groups need to educate themselves, especially Greenpeace. I'm not saying all environmental groups, but Greenpeace especially needs to educate themselves on GMOs and not be afraid of it, so they're not scared of it and they don't become part of the problem. GMOs are part of the solution. And I'm doing this video log because basically I had my class compare a Greenpeace article to the Rational Wiki promoting golden rice, and 35% of my class thought that the Greenpeace article was scientifically accurate when basically it was all made on propaganda. So, all right, hopefully I explained very briefly why I'm not worried about golden rice, and why golden rice is actually part of the solution to our problems that we face as a society. And we need to actually be investing more into genetically engineered crops. Okay, until next time.